Guerrilla Reviews with this important announcement. Citizens are advised to check their pockets for monsters. This is not a drill. For those unaware, Monster in My Pocket started in 1992 as yet another small figure line. A little late in the game, considering it was 92, but basically as Matchbox's own version of Kinnikuh Man, using monsters, legends, and creatures of yore. Obviously, they came in a variety of colors. We have a combination of Series 1 and 2 here, which are going to be perhaps the easiest and least expensive to attain. 4 and 5 were a little different. They are actually painted, known as Super Scaries, at least for one of the series. Also, the polymer on 4 and 5 were a little bit different because other reviewers have mentioned that they are a little bit sticky as opposed to these, which are not. So these clean up a lot better. The series after that got a little weird because it got into things like aliens, sports figures, and wrestlers. So, yeah, things got a little weird towards the end. Then again, it was the 90s. And another couple of facts is, as you probably already noticed, I did mention Series 3. That is because that was kind of a serial exclusive and very hard to get a hold of. Very hard to get a hold of, in fact. You'll be paying out the nose if you want to get any Series 3. It is available on places like eBay and Etsy, so that is an option if you are so inclined. Now, as I mentioned, these come from various legends and monsters of yore from all around the world. But take this, for example. This is the Cockatrice, probably a bit more familiar, though the design not so much. Here's something interesting. From France, we have the Tarasque. I didn't pick French, I'm only assuming that that's correct. It had the head of a lion, a tortoise's back, and 6 bear legs, and a serpent's tail. Crazy, isn't it? So now from Native America, we have the Wendigo. Every bit as crazed and as you would imagine it to be. So now from Britain, we have a figure known as Herne the Hunter, which stalks one of London's major parks. Very interesting. You also learn some very odd bits of history with these things. Okay, here we have Spring-Heeled Jack, another British legend. He was more of a nuisance than any real threat, at least according to most of the stories that I could read up on. From Ireland, we have the Nuckleave, which was a phantom horse with a skinned human torso on its back, if that makes any sense to you. Then you have some things a little more iconic, or a little better familiar known these days, such as the Tengu, more based off of the legend than the popular culture would probably have you know. Then you would probably know anyway. And we have the Jewish Golem. Yeah, they did do a series in 2006 that were painted as well, but considering that you can't even find that, I imagine that those were hard to get a hold of or just kind of bombed. So now, the Frankenstein's monster. As you can probably tell, these are very well detailed and rubbery. Very nice. Now, here's something interesting. This is this toy line's version of a harpy. Little derp from the front, but otherwise, if you look at it from the side, it's perfectly fine. Russia's Baba Yaga, not to be associated with the John Wick films. Here with her cooking pot. Why she didn't have the pestle, I don't know. Well, as you can see, there is quite a lot of variety here. And as I mentioned on another note, there was the god Ganesha, which, as one of these figures, it stirred up quite a bit of Some people because having a god of good fortune as a monster did not sit well with them. As well it probably should. Moving on to some other figures, here we have good old Nessie, which is still legendary regardless if it actually exists. Here we have the goddess of misfortune Kali, or goddess of death, depending on which you follow, which translation or version you wish to follow, right? The Norse Ymir, the frost giant, very peculiar, but very interesting. Now, also, we need to cover this fact real quick. The Jotun Troll, basically another Norse mythology item, was one of the more prized figures. There was supposedly a version that had a star in its back rather than the point values right here. Basically, the star meant that it was one of the strongest monsters ever, but getting a hold of it, even to this day, has proven to be incredibly elusive, if it ever actually existed. Now, a couple of interesting things. Now, take this for example, the Winged Panther. Literally, just as advertised, a panther with wings. A little weird, but still pretty nice. An interesting point of note is that it might seem like a repeat to do it, but this is a chimera, this is a manticore. Many people mistake this for the manticore, but this is it. Strange, but true. Another example of supposed repeats, Medusa, Ancient Gorgon. A little weird, but at least you get some more variety. What's weird is that the Medusa is only worth 10, while the Ancient Gorgon is worth 20. While the more famous one is only about half the points, is really anybody's guess. Now, as I mentioned, there are point values for these figures, because there was something relative to a game of this. It works kind of basically, the higher the point value, the stronger the figure itself was. Series 1 went up from 5 to 25. Series 2 went up to 30. The aliens, in fact, blew everything out of the water by having points value as high as 250. If you can figure that one out. Now, as I mentioned, these are available on sites like Etsy and eBay. You can probably also find them on several other toy-related sites at varying prices. Again, that really depends on the rarity of the figure, the popularity of the figure, and the point value of the figure. But if you can find a color that you want and a price that you can willing to pay, these are an interesting little item, and each of them do indeed fit in your pocket, even if you may need deep ones to afford some of them. Anyway, I'm Deceptiwolf. This has been a brief rundown of Monster in My Pocket. I gotta remind you all, free your mind, free your toys.